Hey, ladies and gents, and welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. Episode 157. As always, I'm joined by Dom.
Pete Hines. All right.
Oh, whoa. And Jordan.
Greetings, Jared. How are you today?
I'm good, Jordan. But how you doing?
I am spectacular. It is wonderful to have you on the show once again.
God, if I ever had like a robot in my house that talked like that, I would never go to sleep. It's terrifying.
Jared, would you like to discuss Star Wars?
Oh, God. So let's hop into what we've been playing. Dom, you want to lead us off?
Yes, I do. I've been playing a game called... It's like 4 sentences. The Legend of Zelda, featuring Cadence of Hyrule, dancing necromancer.
Featuring Crypt of the Necrodancer, Cadence of Hyrule. It's actually a lovely subtitle, Dom, and I won't have you besmirch the name.
I'll double down and say the title is fucking nonsense, but that's okay.
The layering of the title is certainly nonsense.
I mean, I guess I get it, what it's saying, but that's just a long title.
Cadence of Hyrule, I just love that part. Cadence
that
of
part
Hyrule
is cool.
Really cool.
So that's actually what I've been calling it, just as Cadence of Hyrule. Like, that's a good title. Like, I know it's not quite descriptive enough as they want, but that to me sounds better. Anyway, I've been playing that. I'm nearly done. It's a very interesting game. So, it's incredibly
difficult. Let me tell you, boys, it's a very interesting game.
It's an interesting time.
It's incredibly difficult. After like 20 minutes of, wow, well, this sucks. I turned off like the actual beat mode that requires you to only move on beats, because holy shit, it's absurd. It's I don't know how anyone could ever play the game like that. It's so difficult. And it's much better, but it's even without that, it's
explain what that
difficult.
is, Dom, for those who don't know.
It's literally a rhythm game in that there's beats that obviously go along with the music that are coming across on a little slider on the bottom of the screen. Okay. And they come off, and to the, like I said, to the music, and you can only move on those beats. So you move, square to square in grids, only on beats,
so it's
though.
Almost like turn-based in that sense?
Yeah, it's more, to me, it's like equally like a strategy game, like a Fire Emblem almost, as it is, a 2D Zelda game, because you're moving in a grid, and you have to be planning ahead where you're going and what attack you're using and so on. So actually that's a good observation. It is like that. But it adds in, you can only move on the beat, which is absurd. It's crazy because each screen is like a 2D Zelda game. But because you can only move on the beats, you have to keep going. And everything is a puzzle. Like the enemies on the screen are all one puzzle because they only move on when you move. And they all attack differently. So you have to figure out, like, if I move this way, they each have different patterns, the enemies. So it's incredibly difficult to, like, learn their patterns and move around and be according to the beat. It's, probably the most difficult thing I've ever tried to do in a video game. Hands down. Not exaggerating.
Without playing with that on, did it take away from your experience?
Dark Souls.
Or are you still really enjoying it? Because it seems to me like if that gets turned off, then that takes away a primary part of what makes that game unique. So then does it lose its identity?
I think so, a good amount, because I mean the music is still really cool. It's remixes of Zelda songs, but yeah, that's kind of a 60% of the core functionality of the gameplay is that, and you're turning it off. But I mean, I can't play without it, so it's like that or nothing.
But there's still inherent value in it because you're able to turn it off, right? Like if you weren't able to, then you can't play through it. Then it's just a busted purchase on your part, right? It's wasted money. So it's like that weird. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I would a lot of similarities to the easy mode in a Dark Souls game. Argument
baby mode.
where this mode is now allowing me to play a game that I might not have been to play otherwise, but I'm not. The original intent of the game is I'm only getting 50% of what makes the game cool, basically, because of my lack of musical ability and failure to keep a beat. But it's also, the other weird thing about it is it's roguelike, light, whatever the fuck. That stuff drives me nuts, those two words. But when you die, most of your items go away, and I die often. So that's it's interesting. All your rupees, very few things. Like a quarter of your items carry over beyond death. But it's really quick. So like you die and you're just like right back where you were, and so it doesn't break the flow that much. And most items are really easy to get back, and that much of it I don't mind. It just brings a different dimension, I think, to a Zelda game that I kind of like. That like it's kind of like spoon feeding you those elements of those types of games. You don't entirely start over, but those are there. So after all that, it's also a pretty good 2D Zelda game. It looks really, really beautiful on the Switch, and it's still a lot of fun. It's similar to after that. It's similar to any other 2D Zelda game you can think of, just smaller. I've only played for like 4 hours.
Is the soundtrack making your playlist?
No. Actually, I've been bogarting a really good lo-fi Zelda remix beats playlist. That is it's fucking. I'll have to send it to you guys. It's mind-blowingly good. But that's this is more upbeat stuff that I don't know that I'd listen to it outside of playing the game, but I do really like it. It's really cool.
You think it's good? It's just maybe not something you want to listen to all the time.
Yeah, I don't typically listen to video game soundtracks outside of in the game. Not that I don't appreciate them, but I don't know. I think a lot of them are meant. They're meant to be part of that game while you're playing, so they don't always translate.
What's that from?
Yeah.
What's that from? Jared?
Sounded familiar.
I am not good with soundtracks.
One of my favorite video game themes of all time from one of my favorite series.
I have no clue.
Big hint. Game takes place in Egypt.
Oh, Assassin's Creed?
Origins.
Origins.
Yeah, I never heard of that.
It's so cool, dude. It's like kind of gives you that vibe of like walking through a tomb, but it's also got like the futuristic Animus vibes. This is all within a song.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
I don't really listen to video game soundtracks outside of games either, unless I'm like writing and I want to feel a specific way, Dom. That's usually when I do, because video game soundtracks do a really good job of putting you in a certain mood if they're done well. So
yeah, it's a different kind of thing. It's not like music that's meant directly for listening and not a part of a game or movie or whatever. But anyway, yeah, Cadence of Hyrule. It's still a pretty good 2D Zelda game. It's cheap, right? It was like $20, so it's an indie game. So I don't know. I'm enjoying it. Like I said, almost done. It's a shorter game, but yeah, having a lot of fun with it. So that's been it. So
how do you expect Cadence to make a cameo in Breath of the Wild 2 or whatever it's called?
No,
like an Easter egg? You don't think she'll be in it at all?
That would shock me. I mean, no.
Okay.
Cadence is a character?
Yeah, she's the main character you play as, right?
No. You play primarily as Link or Zelda. You can later on unlock, I guess,
the blonde
spoilers.
girl, right?
Yeah, you don't play as her.
Weird. I thought you played as her.
No. At the very, the tutorial you do for 2 minutes, but then you switch to either Link or Zelda. And then at the very end, you can unlock the ability to switch between the three of them. So then you can play. Yeah.
My understanding was she was the main character, but you had the choice to play as either Zelda or Link. That's weird. I did not know that. Misunderstanding on my part. Interesting. That may be smarter though, to get people more interested, that they are forced to play as one of the characters people care about from Legend of Zelda. So
it is. I mean, like I mentioned, a lot of the elements of the Necrodancer game are this is a dangerous thing, right? Because you're going to have a lot of people joining this game that are Zelda fans that have never played the Necrodancer game, and it's a weird ass gameplay style, right? So I think that's just one extra thing they decided to do. Well, let's at least let them play as Link. We're already making him dance, so might as well let him still be Link or Zelda.
Got this little appetizer before your nice meal this fall. That's going to be the Link's Awakening remake.
Fuck,
2 weeks.
And that's exactly how it feels. Yes.
And then you'll have Breath of the Wild coming through not too far after that. So as a Zelda fan, it's a good time to be
good days.
Zelda games.
Yes.
Anything else of note?
No, that's been it. There's probably some TV shows or movies I'm not thinking of, but for another day, I suppose.
Jordan?
Dominic, did you watch the second season on Netflix of Mindhunter?
Yeah, yes, and it was so good.
You
Holy
did?
shit. Yes.
Oh, I was just going out on a limb. Don't
Actually,
say anything, because I'm on finished episode 6, 7?
Man, it's good. I think I actually had finished it within like 2 or 3 days of it dropping on Netflix.
Yeah, I'm... you know that I usually don't watch more than probably one, at the very most 2 of like an hour-long episode for a drama. And this show, dude, it's so fucking good, and
it's
David
too good.
Fincher's shit is just so fucking on point that I can't keep away from it. So I've been watching it really quick as well, and man, I always have thought, especially with what we saw with Game of Thrones, that and Westworld, TV show taking a year off and basically coming back 2 years after its previous season. I always think that is detrimental to a show. Almost always, I should say, because it's been 2 years since Mindhunter Season 1, and they have not at all missed a step, and I think this show in particular can handle that the way that they've set it up. So it worked out well for them, and I'm really glad that they haven't missed a step, because this show is so on point in so many ways, and it totally nails what I love about David Fincher and his films, and now shows with this in House of Cards. Just being obviously a psychological thriller, and the tone and atmosphere and the music also has a incredible theme of its own, musical theme of its own, and so yeah, I am just loving the show. It's absolutely one of my favorites on TV right now, even though it hasn't been around for the past year or so.
Yeah, it's another one similar to the dramatization of the OJ case. That show, I forget what it was called.
Oh, yeah.
Came out a few years ago.
American
It's another
Crime Story.
Crime Story, yeah. It's another one like that where it's all real. So that's what I actually didn't realize, is like the 2 detectives they were real. I mean, they're still real, probably.
It's based on a non-fiction book.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know there was a book either. But
Yeah.
it's similar to that other Crime Story show in that it... I mean, I wasn't alive during this time, so
Right.
when serial killers were like not understood and like were becoming famous initially, and it was like a weird thing, and everyone was trying to study them, and it was like just this bizarre time where
When the term
no one
itself was
understood
coined and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Like we weren't around when that was actually going on, so like it's hard to understand like what that was like. But this show, I think, captures it as well as you could, where there's like this weird interest in the minds of these types of people, and then obviously the stories themselves are real, and I don't know most of them or how they ended. I might have heard of some of these killers or other things going on, but yeah, so it's a lot of new, interesting stuff that kind of like, for people like me who are a little younger in this context, I don't know, it's a lot of learning too. It's very interesting, so I enjoyed the hell out of the first 2 seasons.
That's a terrifying thing of like when I was playing Red Dead Redemption. Sorry to go on a little tangent, but I was thinking about like if you were living in this time, imagine how easy it would have been to become a serial killer and get away with it. Like,
well, yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Imagine how easy it would have been to die in times like that.
Oh yeah, you could die from like
how
pricking
tough
your
it is
finger
to
on the wrong piece of
survive.
metal. Yeah.
Right.
Anyways,
Yeah,
back
so-
to your thoughts on Mindhunter.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Mindhunter Season 2. Fucking awesome. Well worth the wait, and it has been a wait indeed. Moving forward, didn't play too much of Control, so I didn't finish it, but am seemingly pretty close. I've really just been doing the critical path. It's possible I'll circle back around to the game, since I am enjoying it so much and am such a fan of Remedy and the style of games that they've been making. Because it certainly seems to have a lot of side stuff to do if you want. The old house is definitely quite expansive. So we'll see if I get back around to that, but just the main story itself is pretty good. You all right there, Dom?
I just realized something I played in its entirety, and I didn't even mention.
Please, by all means.
Man of Medan. I'll keep it brief.
Medan.
I'll keep it brief, like the game, but I was very thankful it was brief because, and I don't normally do things like this, and I try to not
Wait,
be
you
too
say
harsh.
You like the game?
No, like the game, it was brief.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
I was like, that contradicts what you
likes
told us
that
in
it was
chat. I was
brief
like, what the
because
hell?
He
Yeah.
did not like the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people worked on this and spent a lot of time and like probably a lot of crunch, and I feel bad. It sucks. It's bad. Pretty much every bit of it. I mean, there's some good jump scares and some spooky moments, but it's just bad, and it's technically not great. It doesn't look as good as I remember Until Dawn looking, but maybe that's just me. And plus, I actually played this on Xbox because I rented it, thank God. And then it, lots of frame rate problems and just straight up like hitches. Like for a few seconds, the screen would just freeze, right? And that was screwing things up, and the button prompts, all that was getting fucked up. And then the story, there wasn't much of it at all, even though there's 4.5 hours of gameplay. There wasn't really any story that was meaningful that went alongside it. Throughout the majority of the game, you're just wandering aimlessly as these different characters throughout this giant submarine ship or whatever, and it's just incohesive nonsense that's going on. And I'm usually not like this about games. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm typically more positive or at least neutral, but it was just bad. And
we originally knew that it was like multiplayer, but once the game came out, I realized that 5 people can play the game not at once, but like 5 people can choose a character and then they'll play as that specific character right when their part of the game comes up. And that right there gave me a lot of red flags, because the reason Until Dawn was so good was because it was like a focused track of like one set story. You would move between characters, but it was one person playing and somebody maybe backsitting behind you. And with this, they're like, well, why don't we try to give everybody a role so everybody feels included? And then when you do that, you have to try to make all of the characters feel quote-unquote meaningful for what they're doing, so each player doesn't feel as if they're getting the shit part of the game, which then leads to all of the game kind of being shit because you're trying to focus on all of these different parts. I don't know. I still am going to get around to it. I guarantee you this will be on Game Pass, and that's probably how I'll play it. And I'm still excited for like the anthology, but it doesn't surprise me that you didn't enjoy it. I'm not like shocked. So
yeah, it definitely don't recommend it for solo or like couch co-op type of a game. That's how I played it. Like Emily and I just switched off with the controller, and actually like that. There's a mode designed for that where like you each pick some of the characters.
Yeah.
So when that certain character comes up, I would pass the controller to her, and so on and so forth. So I think that's similar to how it would function online, except for you get only one character, so it might be better that way yet. But that's the caveat, I guess, to my criticism is I didn't play that online mode, which hopefully it's better than how I did play it. But yeah, I'm with you though. Until Dawn was excellent. And while there's not really much with this game that I can like, but there's potential, I can't even really find anything like that. It's just all kind of there. I am still excited. I'm definitely going to play the next chapter in the anthology or whatever. I'm still into horror games. There's not too many games like this. I'm definitely going to give the next one a chance still. So
nice. It's unfortunate that you didn't enjoy it.
Until Dawn Iron was hot, man. Should have just gone with Until Dawn 2 while they had a chance.
Yeah, they ended up making a bunch of VR games, and that weird one in the psych ward, right? What was it called?
Yeah, they do the VR spin-offs. I think they did 2 VR spin-offs plus this, plus at least one PlayLink style similar to this, where it's like multiple people can jump in.
Hidden Agenda.
It's a shorter. Hidden Agenda was like a shorter Until Dawn, basically.
The Inpatient or something.
Impatient, I think that's what it was.
Impatient was one of the VR as well as Rush of Blood, which was the on-rail shooter. So all that, and they still have not done Until Dawn 2, which is clearly their biggest success. And there's just
they'll never be able. They'll never
what I was
do
talking
it.
about with. Sorry, what?
They'll never do it.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
They stated that like this anthology series is what they want to do because they have more creative control over it, and they have quicker turnaround in terms of releasing games. And obviously, like
Yeah.
Until Dawn is a Sony property, so unless they want to do another exclusive game, but it doesn't seem like it. But to your point, Jordan, if what Dom said, this game not being great, if the next one isn't great and also doesn't sell well, then they might be forced to go back to Sony and be like, hey.
Well, that and the fact that they say that now, but in the meantime, they've done 2 PlayStation exclusive VR games. They've done a PlayStation exclusive in PlayLink Hidden Agenda. So you were buddy with PlayStation this whole time. Why didn't you just do Until Dawn 2 and then do your,
Yeah.
anthology after that? Like, I think that maybe it's a situation where they're like, well, we want to do what we want to do now, but it's like you didn't take care of what needed to be taken care of, and I hope that's not to the detriment of the studio, because that's like, it kind of unfortunately reminds me of, is it United Front that was doing the Sleeping Dogs, and then they were like, oh, we're going to do Triad Wars Online in the Sleeping Dogs universe. It's like, no, make Sleeping Dogs 2.
Well, the
What are you
thing
talking
too to
about?
that point is we don't know if all of their VR games were also like pushed by Sony, because Sony had been wanting people to make games for PSVR to push the technology, and all of their projects
That's
were
absolutely a
PlayStation
possibility.
exclusives, right? All of those
Yeah,
VR games.
That's absolutely
So.
a possibility. So it's like, who knows whether it's their fault or Sony's, but either way, in my opinion, I hope that, like I said, it's not to the detriment of the studio, but I could see it happening where it is that they just didn't go down that Until Dawn 2 path when the game had no reason to be as popular as it was, as much as it was just, kind of like, not mouth to mouth. What am I thinking of? When people are like evangelizing a game in between each other, and that's a word of mouth. Not
Word
mouth
of
to
mouth.
mouth. Word of mouth. That's what got popular. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But
I was disappointed. It was a
anyways.
bummer.
Anything else, Jordan,
So-
or should I go with what I've been?
Besides Mindhunter, let's
You mentioned
see
Control.
here.
You played a little bit of it, or you didn't really play
A
much
little
of
bit
it.
of Control. Yeah, just played a little bit of Control. I guess that's not true. I played several hours of it, so that's, in the grand scheme of things or whatever. But anyways, I want to give a shout out to some comics because I've been reading plenty of those recently. I want to give a shout out to some that have ended just today. The Wicked and the Divine ended with issue 45. That is a comic that I definitely don't think is for everybody, and I wouldn't recommend to a ton of people, but I do still think it's great, and it's another notch in me enjoying Kieran Gillen as a comic writer quite a bit. So, also ended recently was Paper Girls, with issue 30, I think. And that I would recommend to a lot of people. It's a great time travel story. And Mark Waid's Doctor Strange is ending, which is sad because I really enjoy that book. Kind of a more cosmic Doctor Strange. Kind of a throwback, I guess. Let's see. I've been enjoying, as we've gotten further through it, I've been enjoying the House and Powers of X series. How about you, Jared?
Yeah, really enjoying it.
I think they're both just have a couple of issues left, and definitely a much needed comic book reboot for the X-Men. So glad to see that going on. Let's see what else here. A couple more quick ones. I caught up on Miss Marvel, the Magnificent Miss Marvel, written by Saladin Ahmed, and that is a great book. Really enjoyed that. Didn't expect it. It was kind of one of those ones that I caught up on well after plenty of other Marvel Fresh Start books.
I love her new Kree suit. It's so cool.
Yeah, her new suit is something else, that's for sure. It's, I mean, I guess it's not spoilers to talk about a suit, right? It's kind of just more like technologically advanced, I guess you could say, in a simple way. Not in love with the visual aspect of it completely, but for the most part it looks very good. Let's see. Give a shout out to Event Leviathan from DC with its, especially its art. I think the story is definitely good, with what's going on with basically like all the kind of underground intel organizations throughout the DC universe going down all at once. So that's definitely cool with the detectives coming together. And I love the question. I'm so glad the question's hanging around Batman. It's so fucking great. But the art, man, I've noticed that, to me, I think the current state is you have Marvel doing more consistent artwork, but it's just like, for the most part, really solid and just like beautiful comic book artwork, superhero artwork. And then I think you have DC also doing a lot of that, but they, of the two, I would say, are more experimental in their artwork and kind of push the boundaries and definitely go a little bit more further out, I guess you could say. And Event Leviathan is absolutely that. It is what I think now in modern day comics is like crazy that you have stuff on the level of the Yoji Shinkawa stuff that you see behind me, and yet it's just in a monthly comic. It's weird. I think you kind of go into the whole thing of like, you know, comic book crunch and how artists are working too hard for too little money, and there's a whole conversation there. But I think that for what you're getting, it's weird how these are almost like throwaway, 30-page issues as a lot of people treat them. But the art that we're getting nowadays compared to, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it's not like artists have just all of a sudden become amazing in this span of time. It's just that I think for whatever reason they're putting so much more effort and work and time into it. Probably just because they love it and they want to and they have the passion for it. So I really appreciate that, and Event Leviathan is a good example of that. So
I guess we'll hop into really quickly what I've been playing. So been playing more Control. I think I'm like 7 or 8 hours in. Really enjoying it. I just got to the part where I got level 4 clearance, Jordan. I was trying to figure out how to say that without spoiling it for people.
Have you gotten to?
I've gotten to the person. I've gotten to the person with the shotgun. The African American person with the shotgun.
Okay.
If that helps.
Yeah.
Marshall.
No, I got you. I got you.
I've been doing some side stuff like the side missions. I got stuck in a maze for like 40 minutes that I Googled and realized that I can't complete until I'm close to the end of the game. So that was frustrating.
Yeah.
Of like them putting a maze in the game.
I feel the same way. It was weird. This is weird.
Yeah, I sat there and I was like, "What? I'm trying all these different things." It's like, why am I even able to enter at this point? It didn't seem smart. But other than that, I'm still absolutely loving the game. Like, as it sits, it'll probably be a contender for me for Game of the Year. But I mean, we're barely at the beginning of fall, and like looking through the list of all the other games I'm going to play, I'm like, God, this is just going to be another great year if things hold. Who knows? Some of the games might be stinkers. You never know. In terms of comics, Fair Lady recently ended, which sucks. It got canceled after 5 issues.
Fair Lady? What's that?
That was the one I was telling you about a while back. That's like a Batman detective comic. It's like one and done stories of like this. She's the only female detective in this area, and like the main city is like giant knight's armor kind of.
Gotcha.
And yeah, for the creator, it really sucked hearing him talk about the book getting canceled. It's phenomenal. It got named one of the best comics of 2019. It's personally one of my favorites, if not my favorite of 2019. I would love for it to turn into like an animated series. Like I think it'd be dope. The art style in its comics is unique to itself too. It's not like the Dies or Event Leviathan. It's more towards the traditional comic look, but it does have its own style thanks to the artist, which the name's escaping right now. Forgive me for that. But yeah, that sucks that ended. Nothing else that you hadn't mentioned that I want to mention particularly. In terms of movies and TV, I told you I recently finished season 1 of Titans. Enjoyed it. Finale was great as an episode, but I'd enjoy it as a finale specifically.
Yeah.
Continued watching Cowboy Bebop. Still loving it.
Hey.
Anything else? Oh, Breaking Bad. I'm currently on the part where Jesse has to travel. I guess this is the best way to say it without spoiling things. He has to travel with Gus. I guess I'll say that much. See if you
yes,
can kind of understand where I'm at. Yeah. The last episode I watched, I believe, is called Salud, which is like
Salud.
cheers and stuff.
Skull.
I'm trying to think of what else. Anything else of note? No, I think that's pretty much it. Wanted to get around. Oh, I've watched QB1 season 3, which anybody who's listening probably won't care, but it's one of the really good documentary style shows on Netflix that follows high school senior quarterbacks who are like the top of their class and get recruited to top colleges, and it follows them through their senior year. And they do a really good job of picking different stories for these people. So for season 3, they had the number 1 recruit in the country. They had this kid from like Louisiana who's going to a D1 school, but he's figuring out if he wants to like go to a school near his family or if he wants to like get as far away as possible, you know, so he's kind of fighting that battle. And then the third one is a kid who ends up like tearing his ACL at the beginning of his senior year. So it's him dealing with not being able to play at all and worrying about not getting the scholarship he was already promised.
Even hearing the terminology tearing your ACL, it's just like, fuck that, dude.
It's as bad as it sounds.
That.
It's awful too because you can get hit as hard as possible in your entire life and not receive an injury, and you can jog on the sideline before a game and tear your ACL. You know what I mean? Like, right. It could happen at any point. Anyways, show's really good. If you have any interest in football, QB1 and No Chance U are like some of the best documentary American football programs, like bar none. Hard Knocks 2 recently
Other
finished
than
that.
Friday Night Lights,
Raiders are
obviously.
A joke. Man, I've never watched the Friday Night Lights TV show. I want to get around to it. The movie's incredible.
Oh,
it's like one of my favorite movies.
God. Dude, you think that about the movie and you haven't seen the show?
It's just one of those things I never got around to. I know. It's like on my like backlog.
That, like, I'm not into high school dramas. I'm not into kind of like the soap opera type of shit. But this show is something else, man.
I know.
It's
We've actually talked
awesome.
about it on the podcast before, and I'm like, I got it on my backlog. I'm going to get around to it, but that's what it is. Yeah, so pretty much just Control in terms of games. Apex Legends, I want to mention real quick. They released their first animated short. You know, Overwatch is kind of famous for them. They released their first one for the character Wraith, and it was called Void Walker, and it basically told her backstory of how she was... It's kind of crazy. I don't want to go too long on it, but... So she can walk through the void, and people were wondering what the void was specifically, and it turns out when she enters the void, she gets to see herself from every other alternate reality, and she can call out to herself and help herself. So she thinks she hears voices, but in reality, like, she's going crazy, but in reality, she's hearing herself from alternate dimensions that are trying to help her. But to her, she's just hearing voices in her head, and she thinks she's going crazy. It's a really cool idea for a character. It's kind of complicated with all of like the time warpy stuff. In the short, it's pretty interesting. Cool thing is they updated the game alongside the short, where the lab where she was experimented on was like not added but unsurfaced, because like an event that happened previously kind of destroyed a lot of the map, and you can visit the lab that was in the short, which is really cool. And they have an event around her where you can get specific skins for her during this Void Walker event. So that was a really interesting way to spice up the game with Apex, they do it differently than Fortnite. They're not like updating constantly every week and having to nerf or balance things. Their updates come at a little bit slower of a pace, but when they do, there isn't really any issues with them, which I appreciate. So, good time there.
So, Jared, I just went ahead and routed myself to Fair Lady since I want to read it now. And you were trying to remember the artists. It's Marissa Louise and Claudia Balboni, I think is how you would pronounce that, and Brian Shermer as the artist or writer.
Yeah, I've actually talked to him a little bit on Twitter. He's a really nice guy.
Nice.
He appreciates people who like take the time to like check out his comic. Yeah, it's a I don't want to like build it up too much, but it's a very solid comic book. It's one of the things I would introduce to people who aren't too much into comics because individually they're one and done, so you could pick up any number of the issues. On top of the fact that like with these new IPs, they're not tied to like any previous lore, so you don't have to worry about how does this connect to this, how does that connect to that, all that normal comic book trouble.
It sucks to hear about comic book cancellations, especially for quality books, but it sounds like this and even other series I know like that, a lot of times they lend themselves to a shorter run and are more enjoyable in that fashion.
Yeah, and comic books, there's a whole conversation now about how comic books and graphic novels are the best way to introduce a new IP into the world for a chance of getting it made into television or movies. Because it's
absolutely a thing right now.
Yeah. Let's hop into news. We're going a little bit long in terms of what we've been playing. Got some quickie news, and then we're going to go over the Nintendo Direct that happened the day of recording, September 4th. So quickie news here. Gears 5 reviews are live. They're currently rolling in. It's at an 86 on Metacritic. Another great reviewing game. I'm excited to jump in. Going to be playing through it with my friend.
Yes.
Yeah, it's doing very well. Apparently, people are really into how the Coalition is delivering storytelling in this game, which is a great thing. And I'm like, that's one of the things I'm most excited for. I knew the shooting and the third person cover based shooting was going to be killer. Like that's you'd expect that in a Gears game. I wanted to know about like the narrative stuff, and the fact that the narrative is what's getting talked about most in these reviews has me pumped. So. Yeah,
I'm with you. My worst case was like, the multiplayer is great, but the campaign is so. Like that would have bummed me out.
Halo 5. Yeah.
Right. But this the reviews so far have me fucking jacked. I was already pretty hyped, but this is like, it's a good feeling when like your hype is confirmed and you're like, all right, I'm safe. It's gonna be good,
And this is like hokey and like whatever, but the fact that Dave Bautista is gonna be in the game as like a multiplayer character is really cool,
right?
Because he's talked about trying so hard to get the Gears of War movie made, and no one wants to make it in Hollywood. And he's been like at the forefront of like wanting to make it happen because he really wants to play Marcus Phoenix, which I think is like really dope casting. But yeah, it's great that it's getting good reviews. These games are coming in. I guess Man of Medan is the first real stinker, right? Out of these big fall games. I'm trying to think of anything else because we had Control, which reviewed well, Astral Chain, which reviewed really well, and now Gears 5. So we'll see what happens.
Got good games.
Yeah, next up, this isn't too much of a news story, just kind of an update. Cyberpunk 2077 will get multiplayer post-launch. We had heard CD Projekt Red mention it before in terms of the game having multiplayer eventually, and they announced now that they're currently hiring. They posted a thing on their Twitter saying, if you're interested in helping us develop the multiplayer of Cyberpunk 2077, come and try to join the team.
Please. Don't be a Rockstar situation where they do this instead of single-player DLC.
Oh, God, yeah. I have faith in CD Projekt Red, but, as Dom would say, it hasn't happened until it happens. I think is that what you say? Or
you know what, boys?
Yeah, something like that.
CD Projekt Red, I'm sure, is about to have to deal with microtransactions, and we're going to test how much goodwill they've built up.
Also, shout out to all the people that are getting furious over the fact that they took away binary gender selection, which is like dumb because not that they did it is dumb. The fact that people are mad about it is dumb.
Except for the fact that you just gave those people a shout out.
Well, yeah, I'm doing it ironically, obviously. But if people are anywhere familiar with Cyberpunk, it would make more sense for you to focus more on the features of the character as opposed to a binary sex selection, right? So.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I read about that and just kind of like, I don't understand any side of this. I'm just gonna trust that what they're doing makes sense and it's good. I don't know.
Yeah, it just doesn't affect me. Like it's like, all right.
How does that work, Jared?
It's just you select like a body type, so it'll probably be like masculine and feminine body types, and then.
So it sounds like you're still picking one of the two. You're just not. They don't literally have
labeled.
the label of male or female.
Yeah, exactly, and you probably like can adjust like chest size and you can put hair on any character, so they're not like set to a specific character or makeup or any of that stuff. So. Any of like the customizable options are available for both. It's just they're not labeled as such. It's a weird thing to complain about. Let's not take any more time for my bad shout out of those idiot people.
Yeah.
This one is just something I wanted to mention because obviously we're from software boys here in this household. So according to the listing,
we're from software family actually. So you can get out of here with your fucking Lords of the Fallen bullshit
and your Surge crap. So according to a listing on Target, this recently popped up. Elden Ring is expected within the first half of 2020, specifically for the fact that it has a June 30th, 2020 marker on it. Obviously, for us, we know that that's a placeholder date. It's not actually coming out June 30th. When stores do this, it's usually in preparation for a game that doesn't have a date that's expected before that date. Normally we see the December 31st, right, for every year when games don't have a launch date yet. Obviously, this doesn't mean it's coming out in the first half, but it indicates that could be a possibility. Hopefully, we see more of the Game Awards. It's an interesting tidbit because we know from software's tendency to release games in the first half of a year, usually within the first 3 to 4 months. So it holds true to that schedule for them. But because we've seen such little of Elden Ring, who's to say that this is even possible? We don't know
Guys,
how far along it is.
Consider this. Elden Ring comes out as we would have guessed in like March next year, like every other FromSoft game comes out in March or around there. Cyberpunk comes out in April, and then The Last of Us Part 2 comes out in like May or June or somewhere. Like, consider that string of games right there.
Or
like,
February. Remember, there's that rumor of it coming before, so it'd be
or
like
maybe
before
even,
them. Yeah. And
like,
it's also not including Animal Crossing, obviously not on the same level, and Avengers, which who knows what that'll be.
And then you're right. You got Avengers in May too,
and Watch Dogs, the new Watch Dogs, which
just
looks really
packed.
Cool.
Assemble!
It's everyone just trying to get their piece of the pie before next gen comes out. It's like, hey, this install base, buy our games. So we'll see what happens there. The last bit I wanted to mention is also CD Projekt Red news. It's something like we probably assumed was happening, but they gave confirmation that they're doing exactly this. During their most recent financial report, CD Projekt Red announced it has split its studio into 2 teams. They stated the reason for the move was to be able to conduct parallel work and make the gap between projects shorter in a self-proclaimed dual franchise model.
Now, what other franchise are they looking at, Jared?
For reference, the studio currently employs 887 employees.
God
so if they
damn.
split in half, obviously, to be 440 and
Fucking
440.
Poland down over there.
So that
Employing
includes
everyone, yeah.
I'll throw it out because I didn't realize this, that also includes GOG or whatever it is, because they own that too, and I didn't know that. So that's probably a couple people.
You didn't watch the No Clip doc, Dom?
If I was a betting man, I'd say it's
damn
less
it.
than like 75 people because of the structure of that website. But
I was thinking 100 at most,
Yeah, 100, no more than 150, But yeah, still a lot of employees employing the entire country of Poland.
Gentlemen. Let me say this. The fact that they are on now a dual track for Cyberpunk and Witcher sequels to come out for hopefully the next, 10 to 12 years. I'm not asking anything crazy, just a couple or few, whatever. God, that is fucking awesome. That is so awesome.
Do you expect the next Witcher... I have a dual part question for you for this dual franchise model.
Gotcha.
The next Witcher, Is it? Do you think it's going to be called? It's not going to be Witcher 4, right? It'll be called Witcher
No, it is
subtitle
not.
probably.
Absolutely.
And more than likely, 100% it's going to feature Siri.
100% I'm willing to bet money on it, Jared.
Yeah, I'm with you. Obviously, you're way more familiar with the franchise, though, so like, I wanted to know what you thought about
But do
that.
you get to
I think
pick
it will be a
Siri's
sequel
gender?
to Witcher 3.
God damn it, Dom. What, Jordan?
I think it will be a sequel to Witcher 3, by the way.
Yeah, just not in title. It won't be Witcher 4.
That's one thing, actually, that this news feature brings up is that how are they going to deal with sequels for both of these franchises where I'm sure it's going to be the same in Cyberpunk where you can have up to fucking 18 endings, and then if you look at the minor variations, there's hundreds of different endings, really.
Yeah.
They will pick one.
Yeah, they'll have to pick one, and we've seen studios do that before, you know, Sucker Punch with Infamous or
They could do the
whatever,
Mass
but,
Effect thing where like your save transfers over.
They could,
But it's
They
so
are
varied
crossing
that could be really
generations.
difficult, right?
the Mass Effect thing happened within a generation, you know?
You're right, and we're
Not that
going
that's
to.
impossible,
You're right.
but I would say that they'll end up just picking. But the biggest thing I'm saying is that it's not a light or dark ending like with Infamous. It's one of many, so they're
Yeah.
going to have to be like ending C out of, you know, A through F is the one that the sequel employs.
I would
Yeah,
assume the
and you
smartest
can-
thing is like. Go ahead, Dom. Sorry.
Yeah, so that worked for like Telltale, right? Where like their games are so much smaller in scope. Where like I think Walking Dead season 3 started, and like handful of different things, you know, that you pick ahead of time from the previous game affect what happens in that third game.
So you didn't transfer your save?
Well, you could, and that would just make the choices already made. Or if you didn't
Already
transfer
made.
your save, then you could kind of pick like what happened before.
Right.
And that had a handful of different options or whatever that would change how 3, like the core character or 2 characters or whatever. Whatever, it's a fucking game if I spoil it. Clementine and the baby, you know, survive season 2, like no matter what, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are certain other major characters that do or don't, and things like that affect how the third game starts.
So you...
But that's tough to do in, you know, like Witcher 4, like that each game is already
Well,
enormous.
You do that in
and
Witcher
hard.
3. You pick... I don't know if there was save transfer because it might be possible. Well, that's cross-generation. I don't know. I do know that there's a part at the beginning of Witcher 3 where, like, since I had played Witcher 2, I basically just chose the events that happened in my Witcher 2 save when I started up Witcher 3, and he's, like, asking me the questions. So, yeah, they've already done that before, so that's a good point that you reminded me of, is that they've experienced this before. They've dealt with this before in a franchise. So.
Also in Cyberpunk at the beginning, you're choosing one of 3 origins. So it would be...
Right.
You could expect in the sequel, they maybe pick 3 like canon endings and you choose from one of those 3. So maybe not one of the 12 endings or whatever you can get in the first
Right.
Cyberpunk, they just pick 3 of them, maybe.
That's another difference in the 2 series. Although they're deep RPGs, the Witcher series has a character already set for you, and seemingly will with Ciri. I don't think that they'll do, you know, a customizable character for Witcher 4,
God, I hope not.
but yeah.
Let's hop into this Nintendo Direct. There was a lot of stuff announced. We're only going to go over
Nintendo.
the 10 things I felt were most notable. If you want to get the full rundown of everything, I'm sure there's a website you can Google to give you that, probably IGN or GameSpot. They're usually really good at giving you a rundown of all the announcements and the specific details. But we're only covering the prime real estate in that Direct.
That prime state.
So this one was kind of leaked beforehand, but we got Overwatch. The date, it's coming out October 15th. The weirdest thing about this coming to the console isn't that it's a game that's entirely dedicated to online, and Nintendo Switch doesn't necessarily have the best online service. There's motion controls for certain abilities for certain characters, which is not going to get used by anybody if they're trying to be competitive. It's like gyroscopic, like motion controls. Very weird, very odd. Junkrat, whose ability is his ultimate is he gets a tire, he revs it up, and then you control the tire as a bomb, and you find somebody specifically and you blow it up, right? And you detonate it. That can be controlled by gyroscopic motion controls. And it looks like a nightmare. I think it's already hard enough to control with joysticks. So,
I was gonna say I've never used it myself, but apparently in Doom on the Switch, you can aim, by moving the console, gyroscopic, right? But apparently that's like way better according to some people that I've heard of.
I bet, because I was just about to say, I don't think enough people played Doom on the Switch to realize that this console is not. And I'm not even talking about like graphically or how it runs. I'm talking about like the physical console itself is not prepared to handle a first-person shooter of this ilk, or a third-person for that matter. And so I think a lot more people will try. Well, they do Fortnite on there, I guess. But anyways, I think a lot of people will see that trying to play Overwatch on their Switch.
Next up, we had another mobile-ish type experience invading the Switch. They announced Super Kirby Clash, which they detailed as a free-to-start multiplayer game. It's going to have more than 100 quests. It was shadow dropped the day of the Direct, September 4th. And yeah, it's a weird like mobile-ish type experience. When they say free-to-play, it's like you're going to hit a wall and then you're going to have to buy something, right? So where that wall is for the people interested in Super Kirby, check that out. Next up, we finally got a title for Town, which is the Game Freak RPG that takes place in a one specific small town.
And the title is
Little Town Hero.
Oh my God, are you fucking with me right now?
No, that's the name of the title.
God damn. Also, that game, I gotta say, I don't love the look of it. Once I actually I heard the concept from you and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And then I saw the actual gameplay and footage of it. I was not that into it.
I don't know. They're the only people that I've ever seen add 2 words to a title and make it more generic sounding. The cool thing though is
they fucked that up so hard.
All of the music in the game is by Toby Fox, who did Undertale. So that's a positive there for people who really enjoy the soundtrack from Undertale. I know a lot of people do. That's coming out of
Japanese developer collaborating with a Western. I guess. Did he do all of Undertale or just music?
He developed it all by himself. Everything.
Yeah. That's an interesting collaboration right there.
Yeah. Were the Cadence of Hyrule's devs the people behind that game, or are they Western?
Yeah, no.
Oh yeah. I don't know where from, but they're definitely not Japanese.
Okay.
Yeah.
That comes out October 16th, so a day after Overwatch comes out. Next up, Banjo-Kazooie was shadow dropped. People have been wondering the date for when he was going to be added to Smash Bros. Ultimate, and it was September 4th. So
I thought you were talking about the game. I was like, they did that shit? Holy gosh.
So after the Direct ended, Sakurai came on and did a video explaining the character and his moveset and how to play as him, and the character was available. So that's really cool. Shadow drops are always welcome. They also announced, and forgive me, this is not a series I'm familiar with, they announced Terry Bogard is coming to Smash. Apparently this is a big deal. He's from Fatal Fury, which I guess is like a classic fighting game. Once again, sorry. If you want
I reacted the same way you are, like, oh, is this supposed to be a big deal or something? Like they made it.
This is a classic video game, sir.
Yeah.
If you want the real...
Whatever, we're from Software House.
If you want the real awesome reaction to this, I guarantee you that one of the members of Easy Allies probably lost their mind at this announcement. He's going to be coming November 2019, and the coolest thing about all of this Smash Brothers news is instead of being stuck to the 5 DLC characters they originally announced, obviously Banjo-Kazooie is the 4th one, and the 5th one is still... Terry Bogard is the 4th one, the 5th one's still unknown. They announced that there's more DLC fighters in development, so they're not sticking to the original 5. Which is smart on their end because it seems like these partnerships are great for the marketing for both the game that's coming out and for Nintendo, right, for Smash Brothers. So I'm glad that they didn't limit themselves, because now, even after the 5th one is revealed, we'll always wonder, is this Nintendo Direct going to have a Smash reveal of a new character? I think it's really cool that they kind of opened the door on that.
Well, there's a limit to how many they're doing, right? Like the season.
No, there was a limit of 5. In this Direct, they announced there's no limit. There's additional DLC
Okay.
characters actively in development. They didn't give a specific number at all.
My bad. Spaced.
No problem. Next up, I'm sure two people are excited about this. Deadly Premonition 2 was announced. Deadly Premonition 2 Blessing in Disguise. It's coming in 2020. This is a weird, very weird Japanese horror game that a lot of people loved the first one. It's kind of a cult classic at this point.
When you said the title, I didn't think of like the colloquial term "blessing in disguise." I just thought of friend of the show Blessing
in disguise.
In disguise.
That's funny. That gives me an idea for a tweet of like photoshopping him to a disguise.
There you go.
And the first game, Deadly Premonition, was shadow dropped today on the Switch. It's like a remastered version. It has a different title. Wasn't able to write it down in time. But yeah, so if you're interested in the series and this sequel trailer had you interested, the original is on Switch for you to play today. Quick shout out to Divinity Original Sin 2 Definitive Edition coming to the Switch.
Ooh,
It's
yeah.
regarded as like one of the best RPGs in the last decade. I might actually end up
Divinity!
picking up on the Switch. It's a very dense game, and it seems like something that's cool to chip away at. I don't know if I'd ever tackle it like on PC or on my Xbox, but yeah, it being available mobily, and that was also shadow dropped. And the coolest thing is if you are one of these PC dorks that does your Excel spreadsheets, it features cloud saves that work between Steam and the Switch. So your
That's
save can go
wild.
back and forth
all
between Steam and the
about
Switch.
that shit, bro. I'm all about it.
Yeah, awesome.
And so, the other thing, Jared, I was reading about this because I've been teetering with the idea of this game for a while now, but I've never gotten into anything in that genre, right? That like CRPG style.
Yeah.
And this game in particular is supposed to be really difficult, from what I understand. But apparently, when it released on consoles, and I assume the Switch version will also have this, is like there's a easier mode, like a story-based mode kind of
Yeah.
a thing, which would be which is even more enticing for someone like us, I think, to get into it. And now that it's on the Switch, it's like, ooh, okay,
Yeah,
it's supposed to be good, dude.
It's one of those games that like you hear it's like so great and you're like partially interested, but you're like, I don't know if I'm interested enough to battle everything that like I'm unfamiliar with or uncomfortable with. But
Right. And it's
opening
just
those
so
doors-
different
yeah.
gameplay wise than what I'm used to. So it's
You mentioned P. Hines earlier, so I'll mention this, I guess. Doom 64 was announced coming November 22nd. The first time this game is going to be available on a Nintendo console since its original release. Why did P. Hines upset you, Dom? What did he do?
So, I'm always the guy, and I'm always trying to scold people and tell people, don't let your expectations get too high.
Uh-oh.
For like, when it
He's
comes
a
to state of
scolder.
play, and when it comes to Nintendo Directs when they're announced, I'm always the guy who's like, well, you shouldn't have expected so much. Like, whatever. It's anything is good. It's more than you had yesterday. I'm always that guy. But I broke my own rule. So like Pete Hines got his own little clip, a recording of himself announcing Doom 64, right? And in my head, I'm like, oh, there's got to be more. Like, he wouldn't make it his own video, like home recorded or whatever, if this
Yeah.
was all he was going to be announcing. Like, there must be more. I'm like, and of course, I'm like, Fallout 3 remastered, finally, like, right, Fallout 3 on Switch, just like going in my head on loop. I let my thoughts get there.
That's
And
quite a
then-
jump from Doom 64.
Well, what else, right?
It's so funny, the expectations, because I didn't even know he did that. So when the thing popped up, a message from Bethesda, I was like, oh, neat. And then they announced Doom 64. I was like, oh, cool. But on your end,
Yeah.
you're like, there has to be more. There has to be more.
The fact that, I mean, in every direct, it's typically like, it's just a quick pre-rendered trailer or whatever, but it was actually a video of Pete Hines himself, like in some Bethesda fucking courtyard or whatever, with a Doom prop behind him. And I did it myself. I shouldn't have even expected anything more, but I thought to myself, oh, there must be more to this than just some janky
There must
old
be more.
Doom 64 port,
Yeah.
But there was not, alas. So, my
So
bad.
real quick, there were some ports announced too. We're going to run through these real quick before we get to the three last bigger announcements. Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 is coming out September 24th. This is like a really beloved classic Star Wars game. The good thing is it's like an old game, so it won't suffer too much coming to the Switch, thankfully. Ni no Kuni is coming as well on September 20th. So you can pick up Ni no Kuni and Link's Awakening Remaster the same day.
Ni no Kuni as well.
Yeah. Assassin's Creed 4 and Rogue were in a bundle that was announced to be coming to Switch. I didn't catch the date on this. but it was at a bundle price. Like it was cheaper.
Yeah, I don't.
Where you play as a Templar.
Looks really rough in my opinion, as most of those Assassin's Creed games on Switch looked in that remaster package.
I did not catch a date either, Jared. I don't know that they said it.
Yeah. I thought I missed it, so that's why I said that. Maybe they didn't say anything.
No.
Call of Cthulhu coming out. Enjoyable game. Some in the 7s. Outer Worlds did get mentioned. No date, though. Said it's coming soon.
Damn it. I was sure that it would get at least a time frame, you know?
The last three things, we're going to finish with Pokemon, Animal Crossing, and then we'll get to the SNES stuff. So, Pokemon Sword and Shield. They talked about customization and how it's expanded. It's in previous Pokemon games, it was like, oh, you can change your shirt from one of 3 shirts, and you can change your pants from one of 3 pants. There's a lot more options in it now. You can change more than just those. You can change your shoes, your gloves, and I think a couple of accessories. So that looks really cool. Make it more customized to your own experience, so everyone's not wearing the same 2 suits.
Does this game include binary gender, Jared?
Yes, it does. They're stuck in the past. Where was I? Dang, you threw me off.
Sorry.
Oh, it's fine. So Pokemon Camp is Jordan, me and you obviously have played the most recent Pokemon games. It's the interact with your Pokemon and get stuff for it feature in this game. But the cool thing...
Tell me about it.
It's like basically it's cookie cutter what you'd expect from it in terms of like what we've seen in the past. But there's an additional thing that if you're in the wild area and you have your tent out and you're connected online, you can visit other people's tents and visit their Pokemon, which is cool. So like if you have your tent out in the wild area and I come across you, I can visit and I can check out the Pokemon you have. And they alluded to the fact that I might get something for interacting with your Pokemon. What that is, maybe berries, maybe like held items, right, to evolve Pokemon, who knows?
Think you're going to walk into my camp and touch my Pokemon? Don't you ever touch my Pokemon again.
They added, and this seems like it's super inspired by Breath of the Wild, they added a cooking thing to the camp where you cook different types of curry. Apparently there's over 100 different types of curry that you can make, and each one has different benefits. And every time you finish a recipe, it gets saved in your curry decks, so you know exactly which recipes equal which outputs for your cooking. It looks really fun. It's an additional thing, and messing with those recipes is, I think, a little more than I'd expect in like a Pokemon side activity, so I like that, and the fact that you can experiment with different ingredients. Yeah, it's a neat little addition. On top of that, they announced 2 new Pokemon. One is called Poltegeist. It's a ghost that lives inside of a teapot. It's like a really cute ghost Pokemon. I'm assuming it's the first evolution in a line. I will say at least it's a ghost because it has a body, it has a form, Jordan, and it pops out of the teapot. It's not like the other ones that are like, I'm a ghost.
A little teapot?
Haunting an inanimate object, and I am the inanimate object, right? So it's cool that it's like it's an actual ghost inside of it. And
so he's not haunting the teapot specifically.
Exactly. He's just like using it as it's like a snail in a shell, right? It's his shell. So it's like he's hiding in it.
Gotcha.
The second one, he looks like a doofus. He looks like the bird from Up. He's called Cramorant. He's a blue bird with like yellow accents, Jordan. And he looks, like I said, he looks dumb. But, so he's flying water, which is a really cool combination. It's one of those like anti-weakness combinations. But he has a really special ability where if you use Surf or Whirlpool with him, right, the specific moves, when he comes up from it, he'll have a fish in his mouth, and if your opponent attacks him with a physical attack, he'll get a free hit on them, and he'll spit out the fish and hit him with an additional attack. So it's like part of the strategy of like you can get bonus hits in if you time like Surfs or Whirlpools. It's a really cool, like, unique ability we haven't seen in a previous Pokemon game. So, I hope he evolves into something else because I'm telling you, he looks like an idiot.
Looking like a doofus.
He looks like he's the Psyduck, and I hope there's a Golduck version of him. You know. Hopefully he has his glow up. Animal Crossing: New Horizons. Not much to say here. It was an intro video explaining a lot of stuff. If you're familiar with Animal Crossing, it was literally like nothing you're unfamiliar with. And also, if you watch the E3 announcement of the game's release date, a lot of the same information was tread. We got the date of March 20th. I know that it was dated for March 2020, but I don't know if it already had a specific release date. So forgive me if it did. And the other cool thing, there's Nook Miles, which are essentially rewards you get for achievements in game. So if you sell X amount of weeds or catch X amount of fish, if you sell weed, exactly, you get rewarded with either blueprints for certain objects you can build or opportunities for certain events. So it looks really cool. It's an incentive to keep playing, right? Because we've talked about Animal Crossing is a chill game. You play it at your own pace. But adding these incentives will keep the bait on the hook for people, wanting to continue playing.
Gotcha.
Lastly,
on a stick.
I would assume this is the biggest announcement for most people. We're getting SNES games to the online service. I wasn't able to write all of them down, but it's 20 games in total that are launching tomorrow. The ones I was able to write down are A Link to the Past, which I'm going to get around to, and it will be my first time playing that game, so I'm super excited.
Ooh.
Star Fox, Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island. There's a ton of games. Like I said, 20 games coming out. The other thing I wanted to add that I didn't write down, it's going to feature the rewind mechanic that you can do in the NES games at launch tomorrow, which is great. Tomorrow being September 5th. And lastly, the SNES Bluetooth controller was it the trademark that leaked, Dom? Do you remember? I think it was a trademark, maybe.
I thought it was a
or
patent.
Jordan, if you remember, maybe the patent
or a like a blueprint type of deal.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We knew about it. Obviously, we joked about that it'll probably cost an arm and a leg. It'll probably cost $60-$70, and we were talking about might as well just get the Bitendo.
8-bit.
Bitendo?
8-bit dough.
8-bit dough.
8-bit dough. There you go. One, because it'll be the same price, right? But turns out in a shocking turn of events for Nintendo, it's only $30, which I was surprised by. I'm probably gonna end up buying one now because I can get two now for the price of one 8-bit dough. Yeah, I don't know if you guys are shocked at the price of $30. Not that it's not worth that. I think that's a reasonable price, but for Nintendo's sake, it came off as like super.
Yeah. It depends on how much I can use it in other games.
Good point. Yeah.
So yeah, the one thing that I did think was weird, though I suppose it makes sense, was that they said it's available exclusively to the Nintendo Switch Online subscribers.
Yeah.
Did I hear that right? I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It just seemed weird. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that's their way of justifying to themselves to only make it $30.
Right.
I think they're like, well, we'll make it exclusive, so it still has that Nintendo prestige. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we'll make it $30.
And I guess it's
Boy,
to
do
instill
I
the
love
idea
that Nintendo prestige.
to instill the idea that like this is for SNES games only available on the Switch if you're an online subscriber. So like, why else would you need it unless you already subscribe? But it's like, yeah. So like to Jordan's point, does it work with other games too that don't need analog sticks at least? Does it work with other platforms? Even I doubt it. But I want to say like the Pro controller works on like PC and stuff. So I don't know.
You can use your GameCube controller for a lot of games.
Yeah, I'm getting this
true.
for Super Mario Maker 2, if not anything else. Like, the NES one works. The Nintendo NES one works with Super Mario Maker 2, so I have reason to believe that this one will too.
Okay.
So
it would be a
Absolutely.
dying crime if it did not, I'll say.
Yeah. So that's really awesome. Good direct. Nothing like spectacular or mind-blowing, but I think it was very solid. 40 minutes, a big beefy one. We'll probably get another one by the year's end, but it probably won't be this lengthy. It'll probably be a shorter one about something specific, more than likely. Oh, last thing. Luigi's Mansion 3, I knew it was dated for October. It got a release date now. It's coming out on Halloween, October 31st.
That one, I do remember the release date from a few weeks ago or something.
Okay, so that was already dated. Good to know. Let's hop into what we're going to be playing. For me, going to be finishing Control. There's a movie that's coming out this weekend that I want to see. What is it?
It. Chapter 2.
Oh, yeah, never mind. I'm not super excited to see it after all.
Oh.
Jordan and I were talking about this before the show. Reviews aren't great. I still want to see it, but it seems like it's not going to hit the mark that the first one did, which was a really high mark. The movie's incredible. But I'm still going to see it. Want to see how things conclude, but it sucks that it's not up to par with the first one. But who knows? Maybe I'll Batman v Superman it, and I'll enjoy it more than critics did. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and it's still probably going to be better than 90% of horror movies that are released, even if it's not.
And to my point, I'm not saying that this is reviewing as bad as Batman v Superman. I'm just saying I might like it a lot more than critics like with Batman v Superman. So I just want to be clear. This is still like a 7.5 at its lowest. It's still a good movie, but not to what a lot of people wanted it to be. I'm going to be watching more of all the shows I've been keeping up with. And there was I'm going to get around to start watching The Boys too, Jordan. I don't know if you finished that or not.
I did.
So I'm going to start watching that as well. Really intrigued to get into that. Yeah, it's pretty much it for me. More Apex, more Control. Gears of War, if I'm able to get my friend on this weekend, we're going to start it up. We've played every Gears of War together except for 4, so we want to try to make it happen with 5.
I'll play.
So, I appreciate the sentiment, but
me and Jordan will play then.
Yeah, he's like my childhood friend from like a young age. So it's like, but if for some reason he's like, yo, dude, we can't play it, I have to play with somebody else or I have to play it on my own, I'll message you and we can figure out to play it together.
I was mostly kidding because I play games at often random and often mostly inconvenient hours of the day. So I wouldn't want to ever.
Invitation. So I felt bad and I felt awkward.
See what I did there?
Yeah, great, awesome.
Classic manipulation.
Yeah, it's pretty much everything for me. What about you, Dom?
Gears 5, even though it is a series in which I myself was killed off from. Well, I just spoiled previous Gears games. 3. But whatever. I'm hyped for Gears 5, and I want to play this game, and I can't wait.
Yeah, super excited. Can't wait to play as Batista 2 in multiplayer for the 3 matches I play before I never played again.
Right. That was me in Gears 4. I'm like, oh, multiplayer, this could be fun. 3 games. Nope.
Jordan, are we finishing Control by this time next week? Both of us?
We'll see. I don't like to promise anything, but it's certainly plausible, Jared. It's certainly plausible.
Nice. Besides Control, anything else on the menu?
There's always plenty on the menu to choose from, Jared. Here at my restaurant.
Ooh. I'll point out, I might also jump into, and you guys could as well if you haven't already, Inside and Celeste were both free on the Epic Game Store. The Epic Game Store, you guys, something special. So I might jump into one of those at some point here.
Something special.
I claim those every week, dumb. I've already played through Celeste and Inside, but I'm like, I just like owning them on PC. Like, just free games. Why not? Why not claim them? Yeah.
Sure.
Is that everything, Jordan?
So,
before we close?
I haven't said anything yet.
Oh, sorry. Well,
interrupting.
So I thought Dom interjected because I thought you had said that there's nothing you could think of. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I would like to say that I will most likely play more Control. Like we said, we're getting down to the wire on that one. I'll be finishing up Mindhunter Season 2. Big ol' fat shout out to that show. Let me see. I read Dark Knight Returns 3 by Frank Miller, and I actually liked it probably the most out of all 3. It's the most recent one from a couple years ago. So shout out to that. A little Batman for you. Glad that he went with a different artist for the most part in this one, because he's just not a great artist himself. No offense to Frank Miller. And then I think one more shout out. A comic, Jared, I think you'd enjoy called Heathen, and also a comic called Sword Daughter. The reason I shot them out side by side is because they are both Norse flavored, I guess you could say. Heathen being more about the gods, and Sword Daughter being more about kind of like the show Vikings, a lot like the show Vikings, like the people on the ground. So, two very cool comic books. Shout out.
Shout out. Vinland Saga, the anime, apparently is reviewing very well. I'll probably won't watch it for like 2 years because I'm gonna wait for the dub. I'm pretty sure somebody likes to watch dub.
Probably gonna be the same for me.
Yeah, but once again, like Norse, obviously, so kind of getting those same vibes. Thank you
Shout
guys.
out to the Dragon Ball Funimation leaks. I know you
God.
don't want to listen to
Jeez.
them yourself, Jared, but like, wow, way to fucking change some people's perspective on these characters that we've known for 20 plus years that are, you know, childhood treasures, and then you're basically, sorry to like go into this, but it's basically these leaks of the English dub voice actors for the show just doing some very lewd recordings, some very inappropriate things of all different kinds. Let your imagination run wild, because they certainly run wild themselves. So shout out to that being a mind-blowing situation.
Shout out to that anime whistleblower.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Control Ditchers Gamecast, episode 157. We'll be back next week. I think there's a good chance I may finish Control by next week, but I don't want to make any promises.
Sure.
We'll see what happens. If you can, please follow us on YouTube, subscribe there, hit the notification bell so you know whenever we upload a new video. You can get it in your sub box as well, but YouTube is unreliable with that. Leave a like on the videos. That helps us as well. On iTunes, if you go there and you leave us a review, helps us move up in the algorithm, the dreaded algorithm. Twitter, you can follow us at CTRLINT, that's Controlled Interest Abbreviated. You can follow me at Jared_. You can follow Dom at Dom's Oreos, and you can follow Jordan at Mellomotus. We'll catch you guys next week. I don't think TGS is going to be with... I don't know when TGS happens. I know it's in September, but I think we still have a couple of weeks till then. And maybe we'll see some...
Tokyo Game Show.
We'll see you guys next week. Bye.